I met today's interlocutor through the street epistemology community when he approached the group looking for help on his senior project for high school. Lachlan wanted to try SE with his peers, but he needed experienced street epistemologists to review and provide feedback in order to get credit. I told him I'd gladly be his advisor if he let me interview him for the podcast on a topic of his choice. This is that interview. Lachlan, who learned SE originally from his father, did a great job on the project, and I hope we'll see him creating his own online content in the future. For now, let me know what you think of the reasons and methods that support his convictions about the benefits of democratic socialism as a political system. My name is Nick, and this is Conversations on the Coast. Hello, Lachlan.
Hello, Nick. Thanks for the interview.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was great participating in your senior project and doing the interview just now. For those listening, I kind of flipped the script on Lachlan. He was looking for somebody to interview about street epistemology, and I said, "Yeah, you can interview me, and then if you like, I'll interview you." So we're yeah, doing them back to back.
How the turns have tabled.
Indeed, how they have indeed. Why don't you talk a little bit about this project and tell me again about what you're doing and why you're looking into SE?
So, for my high school senior project, I wanted to go a bit above the requirements. I wanted to research street epistemology because I have a background in not sorry, background aspirations for a background in politics and philosophy. So I wanted to do a kind of project on something that was a bit more academic than a majority of senior projects in my year. Through this amazing Discord I joined for street epistemology, I found Nick and was able to interview him about how street epistemology works and what are some good practices that I should conduct in when performing it. About the project itself, I intend to have like a comparative micro study where I perform debates and I perform street epistemology sessions in some kind of community center. Kind of to get like a comparative thing of like, well, this performed this way, this performed this way. It is kind of juvenile, but also I wanted to kind of try it out.
I mean, that doesn't sound juvenile at all. That sounds amazing. I think street epistemology is one of those things that is best learned by doing, and a lot of people just don't have the motivation to actually get out, put themselves out of their comfort zone and try it. But that's what got me into it, and I'm something like 115 interviews in and still really enjoying it. So.
It's lovely.
Good. Yeah, it's been fantastic. I've been pretty obsessed with it for the last year or so. So awesome. Well, let's get into this. You've probably heard a lot of street epistemology conversations, and so you know that we usually start with a belief. Sometimes people don't have a belief that occurs to them right away, and so we can chat a little bit and kind of figure that out. But do you have an idea for something you'd like to start with? Something that you believe, and often it's best if it's something that you think other people should also believe.
Well, this has kind of always been like a bit of a tricky thing for me because since I'd say sophomore year, I've been a pretty devout socialist.
Okay,
I wouldn't necessarily say devout. That's a word with a lot of connotations. I'd like
sure.
to distinguish myself. While I am a socialist, I do not believe in authoritarian projects which decry themselves as socialist, like
Okay,
the Soviet Union, China, the DPRK, or socialist slash communist, like governments
right,
that I find have a very totalitarian or authoritarian structure, but say like, oh, it's the people's authoritarianism. I don't really
right.
like that. I think for a functioning functionally, that's not a word, a functional socialist
It is
government,
now.
you
Yeah.
need to first base it off of democracy. You need to have a democracy first and
Okay.
foremost. I that could be
Okay.
like the belief that we epistemologize first. Like I think that's probably the core belief I've got.
Okay. So it is, just to paraphrase back, you're saying that you believe that in order to have a functional socialist society, it needs to be based on democracy.
Yes.
Okay. Um, so t tell me some about like how did you come to that belief and why is it important to you?
So I initially stumbled upon this YouTube creator, um,
Mm,
Ian Koczynski, otherwise known by his online moniker Vosh. I
okay.
have witnessed him in debates against people who are on the far right, people who are like
Mm,
lib-leaning. He has kind of been like all over the circuit. Um, he's primarily debated them on like autonomy and like freedom, like people's ability to do things. That sounds really, I'm simplifying his ideas to a point where it's like kind of reductive, but he basically argues in favor of personal liberty, autonomy, and he argues that perspective through a left libertarian framework.
okay. So can you connect the dots for me between that set of ideas and the idea of socialism and democracy?
So um, the left libertarian framework that he uses is an idea of maximizing personal freedom and
Okay.
like personal liberty, both like positive and negative liberty. Um, well, actually, more so, I forget which one's which, but the one that's like your freedom for something, like you have access to resources, you have access to institutions. I think that's positive liberty. Um, we want to kind of maximize that. And to maximize that, we sort of need to have a democracy where everyone has a say in their government and how it is run, or at least from my perspective.
Okay. And where does socialism come in?
I would argue that socialism is part of that process. In
Mhm.
I think socialism is, oh my God, I think socialism is an advanced form of democracy where you have not just an effort to get people equal on scale of like everyone can vote, more so everyone has um, comparable economic status and you don't have people who are impoverished. That is a very crude simplification of socialism, and I apologize for that, but I think
No,
that,
that's
sorry.
no, I think it's fine to start with um a simple explanation. Um if everybody is free to do what they want, how do you ensure that you don't have people who get more wealthy than other people? So how does that work? So if
Well,
everybody has equal opportunity, right, how do you ensure that they have equal socioeconomic status?
I see where you're coming from there. That is my fault for not further clarifying. I
Mm.
think while we should work to maximize like personal liberty and autonomy,
Mhm.
as I'm sure you would agree, it comes at some costs. Like you can't run over people in your semi, you can't like
Yeah.
drive your tractor through a school. Your rights and freedoms end where someone else's begin.
Okay.
So I think that we should have a government. I agree. I'm not like a
Mm.
complete like ANCAP, like we should abolish the government. We
Mhm.
should just have unregulated capitalism. I think that would very quickly fail, personally.
Yeah.
Um, I am in favor of a like a big government. I just want it to be so that everyone has a say in it.
So, um, so you've got a number of beliefs, and you
Yes.
mentioned Bosch. Is Vosh the main reason that you hold this belief,
I
or
feel
are
it
there other
doesn't.
factors? Like what would you say is the main reason that you believe that this is true?
I will be entirely honest. I feel like the way that Vosh has articulated that belief has swayed me.
Hmm.
Before I stumbled upon him, I would just say I was broadly like lib left. You could have probably
Hmm.
convinced me of like a few of the things that he says just
Yeah,
based off of like some basic arguments for like, oh, we have a need for this, or oh, these people are downtrodden in this regard.
yeah.
But the broader argument for socialism is one I would have probably scoffed at.
Okay,
So I will concede that Vosh is probably the main reason I hold the majority of these opinions.
okay. Um, do you agree with all of the opinions that Vosh has? I imagine he covers a wide range of things.
Yes. In
Okay.
regards to politics, I will be honest, I agree with the majority of what he says.
Mhm.
I do not agree with some of his media takes, but his media takes are largely irrelevant to his political takes, as I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah, maybe, but the point I want to get to is if would you say that if you listen to everything he said, you might come to some true conclusions, but you might also come to some false conclusions?
Yeah. Um, I I would agree with that in that he can't physically be right all the time. I don't think anyone can.
Yeah.
In fact, I know of some situations where I would argue not just optically, but ethically he was in the wrong.
Hmm.
So I'm completely willing to concede that point.
Okay. So why is I guess I'll the question there is obvious, right? It's like is um if your reason is that Vosh is a compelling speaker and he's convinced you of this, but he could also convince you or other people of things that you disagree with. Um, I'm going to skip the obvious, what comes out of that. But I guess what I would ask you is, how do you evaluate what an expert says, or how do you evaluate somebody who's a compelling speaker like Bosch? How do you evaluate whether what he's telling you is true? Is it just because he's telling you he's true, or do you have other methods to evaluate what he's telling you so that you can differentiate the things that you should agree with the things that maybe you shouldn't agree with because they're not based on a factual foundation?
There was a lot of parts of that question. I'm going to answer the most. This isn't necessarily like a, oh, this was a
Yeah.
really hard question. This is just like I'm a bit declining. Um,
Yeah, it's just I mean, it's basically like if somebody is an expert, do we believe them because they're an expert and they tell us things, or are there ways to evaluate what they say to determine whether what they say is true?
well, I will admit, he doesn't have sources in his videos, but that's because a
Mhm.
lot of what he talks about is like current events. I
Okay.
fortunately have a Guardian subscription. I
Hmm.
occasionally read the Guardian, but obviously they don't always like cross over. Like he just streams what the Guardian says. That's not really how that works.
Yeah.
Um, so short of the Guardian, I generally don't do that much in the way of independent research.
Hmm.
And this is what I was kind of talking about earlier, where I'm worried like I kind of lucked into the right positions as opposed to like axiomatically determining like, oh, this is ethically correct or oh, this is morally correct.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess to paraphrase back what you said, I think what you're saying is reading The Guardian helps to support what Vosh says.
Yes.
Okay. Why is reading The Guardian a good reason to believe that what Vosh says is correct?
They tend to cover a lot of the same issues as they both talk about current events. Sometimes that's an overlap, like they talk about the same current events. And I
Mhm.
find that when The Guardian covers a specific event, they tend to have the same opinion or conclusion as Vosh. That does not necessarily mean that Vosh is always right. And
Yeah.
what The Guardian and he say are like correlated heavily or like there's a causal link there.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that The Guardian is a pretty reputable news outlet because
Okay.
partially because it's run as free press.
Hmm.
I love the free press a lot.
Okay.
There's if you ask me why I love the free press, I probably couldn't tell you that much as to why. I just like the kind of notion of like you can have a bunch of people band together and speak freely about institutions or
Hmm.
governments.
Right. Do does having people who can speak freely on a platform, does speaking freely make it more likely that what they say is factually correct?
That's a good question. I think you're kind of preempting the answer a bit, but I'd have to say no. Not at all.
Yeah.
Um,
So so let's do this is something you may be familiar with, and I think I referenced it in our previous conversation. It's called the outsider test, right? And I want to be transparent, right, about why I'm doing this because I know you're interested in SE, so I kind of want to like expose the methods while we're doing this. But what you told me is there's this guy that you trust and you trust his conclusions. And then you've also pointed out there's this media and the media and the guy agree. And that helps to support the conclusions. Okay. So let's say I talk to somebody else. We'll call him Evil Lachlan. And Evil Lachlan uh, listens to somebody who talks about uh, let's say, authoritarian communism as being a great way to run a country. And he points to a free press coming out of China that whose ideas support his, and they agree. And he says, because of that, I believe in this conclusion that authoritarian communism is the best way to run a government. So how can I, as somebody who's completely neutral here, I'm hearing you and I'm hearing Evil Lachlan using the same method to come to completely different conclusions. So how can I tell which of you, if either of you is right? Right. First of all, could you both be right?
um, I think this is kind of because I am in statistics right now. This is kind of like a
Yeah.
null hypothesis versus alt hypothesis. Like you can only really have one. It
Mhm.
only really like one is right. You can't really have like both be right.
Yeah.
Um,
But you could have, but they could both be wrong.
I think that's true. Yeah, you could have like
Yeah.
two completely separate values, and they're both like wrong in separate ways. Um, while you were giving the hypothetical, I'll be entirely honest.
Yeah.
I was kind of lost on the idea of China having a free press. Um, I don't want to get too much into that. The kind of problem I have with that, and I know it's a good
Yeah.
hypothetical. I probably wouldn't have a counter argument to the actual hypothetical, where it's like
Mhm.
someone else had the same exact like way you can to your beliefs. They had the same framework, and
Yeah.
they came to complete opposite beliefs. Like I, that is entirely possible. Uh, but I don't see the possibility of China having a free press.
Let's just say let's just go with a hypothetical. Let's say
Yeah,
they're pointing to an authority figure and a free press, ostensibly free press. And we could peel off another layer and say, why do you believe that the Guardian is a free press, and why do you believe that makes them right? But let's stick with the hypothetical, right? So
yeah.
you
Sorry.
have so you and Evil Lachlan are both using the same method to come to completely different beliefs. How can I, as a neutral party, tell which of you is likely true, is likely correct?
I think we've kind of reached the logical conclusion of the conversation, which is until I think about it a bit further, I don't have a straight answer for you. Like you could
Mhm.
probably look at the outcomes of like each government or the outcomes of
Mhm.
um policies that like me and Evil Lachlan propose, assuming we are in like
Yeah.
governmental positions. But I don't think there's like a concrete way, or at least not one that's coming to my mind of like how you could determine like which of
Mhm.
us has a more accurate view as to how like the government should be run.
Okay. So if if you can come to two opposite conclusions using that same method, how confident should you be in your conclusion?
Like a percentage, I'd say like
Yeah, if we were going to go, if you're going to, and I didn't start out by, often we'll start out by asking like, what's your confidence in your position on a
yeah,
scale of
yeah.
zero to 100, right? But how confident should you be if your methods can be used to come to a false conclusion?
Or a conclusion that I believe is false.
Well, let's sure. Yeah, we could do it that way, right?
Um, I don't know if I should necessarily say 0% because there is always like some possibility, but you should have at
Yeah.
the very least a majority disfavor of that because that method
Hmm.
could procreate um instances of which you think I'm not really wording that well at all. It could like create instances which you think are like um a poorly run government, a misran government, or an
Hmm.
unethical one, and you'd
Yeah.
have to analyze like, okay, how does the framework I have potentially lead someone completely disassociated from me from having a very antithetical experience to mine? Like you have a complete opposite experience.
Yeah. So what do you think could maybe be better ways to come to, to kind of support your conclusion? Or maybe how could you find out uh how could you find out, whether your belief is true that socialism built on democracy is a superior form of government?
You would probably have to go back to axioms. Um, I kind of already covered, like, I have a want to maximize? Is it maximize or it is maximize, yeah. To
Mhm.
maximize personal freedom and personal liberty with
Yeah.
the caveat that your liberty ends where someone else's begins.
Hmm.
Um, and there was some other third, like, really good mantra I wanted to live by.
Yeah.
I forget which one, but like those are like the main two. We can probably just go off of those two.
Hmm.
Where, sorry?
So I just to jump in, are do you have examples to point to
Oh, examples.
where of a society that's based on these principles that you can use to, to draw conclusions?
No, I do not. I will admit that fully. I think in some aspects, socialism, not the socialism I envision necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one's like pretty within reach, but like some kind of society without a government, like some hypothetical anarcho-socialism or communism. I think that's
Yeah.
far-fetched, the same way like the Greeks considered democracy far-fetched.
Hmm.
Um, because like you need a lot of practice and infrastructure building to kind of make
Hmm.
that come to reality. So the government I would advocate for is, like I kind of mentioned, more electoral based. Like you've got people who vote and they're of
Yeah.
comparable like class disposition.
Hmm.
If I might add something else to that, I
Yeah.
would also like some kind of social safety net like we have in the Icelandic countries.
Hmm.
Or is it Icelandic or like it Scandinavian? That's the phrase. In the
Yeah.
Scandinavian countries, I'd like to have some kind of strong social net so that if you like go out of your job and you run out of like 6 months, I believe is the um, recommended amount to have when you're unemployed. Like you run out of your
Mhm.
6 months paycheck, I don't want you to like starve on the street or something. I want you to have some kind of
Yeah.
um, community to help you, or government to help you, preferably.
Sure. Okay. All right. Um, yeah, I'm not sure how much further we can take this. I would leave you with that hypothetical, right? If you have you and evil Lachlan both using the same method to come to the conclusion about what's the best form of government, do you really have a solid reason for that holds up your belief if you can use the same methods to come to opposite conclusions?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I'll look
So
into it.
you can Yeah, you can look into that and think about that and think about like where should you set that confidence bar.
20%.
Yeah, there you
20%
go.
or 15%,
That's
probably like very
that's
down there.
that's not a very strongly held belief,
No.
I would say. Cool. Yeah. So any questions for me or any feedback about the process?
I don't know. I feel like you were, as you mentioned in the previous conversation, you were very empirical about that. Not necessarily like
Hmm.
holding any animosity towards my positions. You were just like,
Sure.
okay, well, if you were to make that conclusion, how did you get there? Okay, well, it's from the Guardian. Well, how do you know if he
Yeah.
agrees with the Guardian that that's necessarily correct? How do you verify free media? What if someone hypothetically came up with the exact opposite conclusions to you with the exact same methodology? And that's kind
Yeah.
of where like my argument kind of died. But in lieu of every dead argument, there is
Yeah.
a possibility to build a stronger one.
Yeah, possibly. And I'd love to like hear from you later if you think about it and you think, "Oh, okay, maybe there are better reasons." Now, on the other hand, is it a good practice to start with a conclusion and then go looking for evidence to support it?
There's a term for that. My dad uses it a lot. It's like not manufactured consent. That's a completely different thing. But it's like
Yep.
something bias.
Confirmation bias.
Thank you. Confirmation
Yep.
bias. It's a
Yeah.
kind of a big problem. So I see your point there where it's like you're looking for the truth in like this forest and it's
Right.
you've got like a very specific idea of what you want to find there, and
Yeah.
that's improper.
So, one thing, one of the ways that science works is through what's known as disconfirmation, right? So I might ask the question, what could it, first of all, if you were wrong about your conclusion, would you want to know?
Well, I don't think anyone wants to know that they're wrong, but I think at the same time it's important to know that you're wrong if you are wrong.
Yeah,
So
right.
the answer to that question in short is yes.
Okay. Um, if you were wrong, how would you find out?
I would have to say that and this is like the idea of this, as I understand, is to provide a standard for which your beliefs can be assessed, that also everyone else's beliefs can be assessed, where it's like, would you be fine with a standard you apply to someone else's beliefs being applied to your own?
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, I love
Um,
that rubric. Yeah, that's good.
I would say that the thing I'd need to see in order to like prove myself wrong would be an example of a government which has and this is I take that back completely. That's a absurdly
Yeah.
high bar to hold literally anything to.
Okay.
Um, I was going to say something along the lines like, oh, we need to have this hypothetical government which has these criteria and is like the ideal society. I think that's stupid. I
Okay.
shouldn't have like that kind of a bar for that. So, in lieu of a potentially very dumb answer, I'm going to tell you I just don't know. I don't know.
Cool. I don't know is like one of the best answers because it leaves you open to discovery.
Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Any other questions or thoughts?
Um, Not really, apart from I kind of like the interview. And well, interview like th both interviews, the one that's on your podcast and the one that we just had.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'd love to get a copy of your final project when you finish it up.
Gladly.
Yeah, that would be great to see.
I'll try and send like photos and video if I can.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'd love it. And yeah, especially like if you record some of your SE conversations, I'd love to hear them.
Sure.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Lachlan. I'm really glad you reached out. Both sides of the interview made me happy. So
That's all, honestly, that's all I can ask for. Secondary to like the
yeah,
project getting completed, I kind of want to have a bit of fun with it.
yeah, indeed. And we're just getting to the 10-minute countdown, so I think we're at a good point.
Yeah.
So
Unless there's anything else you want to talk on, I think that's probably us.
I think that is cool. Thanks a lot for having the chat.
Thanks for
I
hosting me.
will. I'll send you a copy of the recording once it's
Finalized.
processed. And probably I'm running like way out on the podcast right now, so I think this would probably appear either at the end of the year or sometime next year. So we'll see. I'll let you know. I'll reach out and let you know when it's going to appear on the podcast.
I waited eagerly. Thank
All
you.
right. Cool. Thanks. Take care. Have a great night.
You too.
All right.
You've been listening to Conversations on the Coast, a series from Washington State featuring civil conversations using street epistemology to explore what people believe and why. Find out more at streetepistemology.com. You can learn how to have these conversations in your own life at navigatingbeliefs.com.